Emmanuel has been working with a fundraising consultant called GSB. Mike Ward is our primary contact there. Mike is a pastor, but who's been involved in the fundraising business for the past 10 to 12 years. And he relayed to us that GSB has a partnership with Gentreo. And we didn't know it at the time, but have since learned, Gentreo is in the marketplace of online estate planning documents, as well as health planning documents. And you guys will cover that in detail, but this is an alternative version to going out to an estate attorney and getting specialized or tailored services for estate plans. So we thought it was important to at least highlight an example of this approach to estate planning, because there are many ways that a person or a family can do their estate plans. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary Kate.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm attorney Mary Kate D'Souza. I'm Chief Legal Officer and founder of Gentreo. And I come to this after 20 years of practice in elder law, estate planning, and probate litigation. So I have a lot of experience and have seen the financial and emotional devastation when families do not have an estate plan. So we're happy to offer this service. It's called Gentreo, in which you can create your estate plan, store it, and share it with those that you love. So with that, we'll get started. And since we are such a small group, normally I ask for questions to be saved at the end. But while we're going along, please feel free to interrupt if you want further clarification or have a follow-up question. I'm happy to help you in any way I can. So what we wanted to do is begin. I know your church has already offered a general overview of estate planning and endowments, and I want to peel that back a little bit and really explain the why estate planning is so critical. And I think oftentimes people have an idea of, well, it's when I die and it has to do with my assets. And really, it's so much more than that. You want to be able to protect more than just your financial assets. You want to be able to protect your children, your healthcare choices. You want to be able to make decisions for your pets and for your loved ones that you want to make, and not be in the control of a court or an attorney or a stranger to you. And that's why it's really important that you have estate planning documents prepared and executed so that they can be used. There are real risks if you don't create an estate plan. First of all, decisions will be made by strangers. If there's conflict within your family, and sadly, I think we've all seen that on some level, that even if there's not a significant wealth component, people still fight over control. Oftentimes children, the older who's used to being in charge, but the younger one resents it. And sometimes there's problems that way. So without having an estate plan and without you deciding who you want to be making these decisions, and if your family and loved ones are fighting over it, the court oftentimes will appoint a neutral professional, which will result in extended costs for you and your estate. And also it can cause really the complete breakdown in family relationships, which of course we want to avoid, right? We want to make things as easy as possible and grant peace of mind to not only yourself, but to your loved ones, to know that everything's all set up. The other thing is for people to understand, absent in a will, your assets are distributed according to the laws of intestacy in your state. Some people have families by choice, not by relationships. But what would happen is the blood relationships, those people would benefit, not your chosen loved ones. So again, that's another reason why it's important that you would have an estate plan. significantly, in addition to creating your estate plan, and what I have witnessed firsthand is that people sometimes very earnestly will create their estate plan, not tell anyone about it, tuck it in their sock drawer or maybe the safe deposit box or somewhere where it is not readily accessible. And at that point, it's just like not having an estate plan. Because when the healthcare crisis strikes and you're in hospital and you have no one to make decisions for you because the document empowering someone to do that is tucked away, no one has access to it, your family and your loved ones are thrown in the boat of having to go to court to get a guardian appointed to make a healthcare decision for you. And of course, that's a situation no one wants, right? We all want to be able to be with the person who's in hospital, not be spending time with strangers at court. So there's real consequences if not only if you don't create and update your estate plan, but if it's not stored in a secure yet also accessible location. So with that, why don't I inform you about the basic estate planning documents? Like I said, the will is something we're all familiar from television or something else. And this is a document in which you determine who you want to get what of your hard-earned assets. You express it in your will. Additionally, more importantly, it's your opportunity if you're the parent of minor children or a child who has special needs that you would want to, an adult child with special needs that you'd want to make sure they're under guardianship. So you would want the court to know if you're not there, who's going to be able to be guardian of these children. Finally, with a will, you're able to appoint someone called a personal representative, also known more familiarly as an executor. This is a person who you appoint to manage your estate and make sure that your wishes as expressed in your will are upheld. So it's a very important role. And again, most of us would want to choose that person. We wouldn't want to leave that up to the court to decide. As part of the Gentreo's relationship with GSB, additionally, what we offer for churches that use us, which would be your church, we have as you're going through the will survey, you have a slide like this, which prompts someone to say, do they want to give to a charity, and name specifically your church. So what often happens when people go to see attorneys, they are not thinking of churches or of charities, of institutions that are important to them and that they've tied to or regularly given charitable donations. Because when they see an attorney, there's usually a barrier in that people are uncomfortable and they have to go and do this. And now they're thinking about their estate plan, and sort of ideas of contributing to charity go out the window, not from a lack of affection or on their heart to donate to a charity. It just sort of gets removed. Most attorneys, in my experience, do not ask those questions. So we offer that as part of the will slide survey, in which the user is prompted, oh, do you want to give a donation to a charity? If so, do you want to give anything to Emmanuel Lutheran Church? And this is the opportunity for them to check yes or no. Obviously, it's a total choice, but it's there to make a choice. The next document that Gentreo offers in regards to organizing assets and preparing for estate management is what's known as a revocable living trust. This is a document that you can put your assets, you can create this trust and then put your assets into the trust, and the trust would control. So upon your passing, the trustee is in charge, not the personal representative. As part of creating your trust, you also create what's known as a pour over will. That's all part of one product at Gentreo. The pour over will is the document that you say anything that you hadn't during your lifetime put into your trust, you want captured and put into your trust upon your death. And that way, everything that you've written in your trust will be upheld and enforced by your trustee. The other benefit of a trust is that it's privacy. Wills and probate procedures are public court records. Generally, trusts are private and people don't have access to it unless, of course, there's litigation in your family, which brings the court involved. But generally, with trusts, it's private information and not public. And for some people, that is a high value. And so, for that reason, they'd choose a trust. For the vast majority of Americans who are of average wealth and have no other concerns, usually a will would be sufficient and the easiest way to create your estate plan as sort of your anchor document. Other documents are a healthcare proxy. Gentreo offers that document also is known as a medical power of attorney, a power of attorney for healthcare, has many different names, but the point of it is all the same. You are appointing someone to make medical decisions for you in the event that you're not able to. A Gentreo healthcare proxy also includes those questions and those issues that are addressed in a living will. Those issues are such as, what kind of treatment do you want at the end of life? Is there any life-sustaining treatment that you would want or that you would not want? And it's important, if you have strong opinions about those issues, that they are expressed in a legal document so they can be upheld. So although the label on the Gentreo document is a healthcare proxy, it also includes a living will component. So you're able to outline not only who you want to make healthcare decisions for you in the event that you're unable to, but also what those healthcare decisions are. There's also an option, if you don't have a strong opinion about it, is to say, let my healthcare agent decide. And they'd be overall in charge of your health in the situation in which you could not make or communicate your healthcare decisions. Similarly, a financial power of attorney does the same thing. But in regards to wealth, assets, income, debts. A financial power of attorney, you empower someone to make financial decisions for you. You can set a limit on both the authority and the time that it's valid. But if you're someone who's a little bit on the older end of the spectrum, it's important that you consider creating a power of attorney that is durable, meaning that it would last no matter what. You can always change this document as long as you have capacity, but it's important to have someone to be able to make financial decisions for you in the event that you're not able to. And again, with Gentreo, there is a possibility when you're going through the slide survey that if you're someone who normally tithed to your church or normally gave a set amount of money to a specific charity, you're able to express that and give that authority to your agent and the power of attorney. And of course, conversely, if you're not someone who does that, you don't have to, but you have a choice of if you want to empower them to make charitable contributions for you. At Gentreo, we also offer services and products related to pets. Oftentimes, people do not have a formal relationship with their pet sitter. It's just a neighbor. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of experiences of people not being covered. So we've offered this product to protect them, their pet, the neighbor, and the vet, so that everything's spelled out about what kind of care you'd want for your pet. And this can be used either during a time of vacation, extended stay away, or in the event of your incapacity. Another document that we've offered now is a pet trust. So if you want to create a fund to care for your pets. So this is a broad overview of the estate planning documents we offer. Gentreo also offers an emergency card and other features, particularly the Gentreo Digital Vault, in which you're able to put out all your information, not only about your estate planning documents, but where you do your banking, what real estate you own, who your doctors are, what health insurance you have. Basically, all the additional information that the person that you've designated as your agent through your estate planning documents would need in order to effectively represent and care for you. So at Gentreo, we like to say you can't predict the future, but you can plan for it. And that's what we're on a mission to do, to make sure that American families protect themselves, their choices, and their loved ones. And we offer this product at an easy and affordable price. So why Gentreo? Why would someone use Gentreo as opposed to seeing an attorney or another online option? Gentreo, we strive to be all in one-stop shopping. And we're easy and affordable, meaning that you can do this from your couch at home, anytime, anywhere. You don't have to set up a separate appointment with an attorney. You don't have to go back multiple times. And further, the price point for GSB members and affiliates is $85 a year. So it's very affordable. And for many people, especially those who are not high wealth individuals, this removes a significant barrier to creating an estate plan and having the rights that they're entitled to as Americans be achieved because it's affordable. The other component is the access. You don't have to go somewhere, you can do it from home. These documents are state specific, so when they're created at the end, the execution requirements will say specifically what is needed for your state. And again, as part of Gentreo, we offer the Gentreo Digital Vault. So you have your documents, your digital vault, and your team sharing feature. So you can choose whatever documents you want to be shared with whoever you want. So for example, you might have a child that is a CPA and you want them to be in charge of your money. And you might have another child who's better on the nursing end or the healthcare end. And so you want that child to have your healthcare information. So that way you're able to assign specific information to specific individuals. Again, all your choice. How does Gentreo work? It's a very simple, easy program. You know, my husband jokes around that if we create a program that I could use who is not tech savvy at all, anyone can use it. And that's what really we've strived to do. You are able to walk through a slide survey process in which you're asked questions about who you want to give gifts to, what type of gifts you want to give for the will. Similarly, for your healthcare proxy, you're able to say who you want to be appointed, what kind of decisions you want them to be empowered to make. Same thing for the other documents. After the documents are created, you download it and review and make sure that it expresses exactly what you want. You're always able to go back into the system and edit your answers so that it 100% reflects what you want. Once it's executed, you upload it and then share it with those people you want to have access. It's the team sharing feature. Finally, at Gentreo, we offer updates on a quarterly basis. And also we send ping reminders on a quarterly basis to our members, just sort of as a touching point. Has anything changed in your life? I mean, unfortunately, the nature of life is change, right? People die, people get born, people get married, sadly, people get divorced. All these things and these changes may cause you to want to change your estate plan. And if so, you're able to do it. As part of your subscription, you get a complete plan at one yearly price, which is $85. Gentreo, our goal is to be the digital home base where everyone turns to in the event of an emergency. Once you've created your documents and alerted your team members, so if the crisis hits, that when they're at the hospital, calling back to the original example I gave of people being with me at court, instead they're with you and they have their documents on the phone, or they can print it out and bring it in, but it's right there with one click. And Gentreo documents are always up to date, and we give you all the information you need to keep up to date. So as I said, the annual price is $85. This is the discounted price for a GSB. Our normal price for the everyday user is $100. Now, even though this is the GSB discounted price and we're giving it to Emmanuel Lutheran congregation, I please want you to know, share that with your loved ones. You may have loved ones who live in another state that obviously don't worship at your church, but you know they're not prepared. They haven't created their estate plan. You're welcome to share this code with them. And this is the page that shows you where exactly to join. Gentreo.com/ELCA. So no one interrupted me with any questions, but I'm happy to answer any you may have.
Mary Kay,
Yes.
I do have a question. You talked about trust. I have read a little bit about revocable trust, and it was helpful to have if you say, for example, you have a spouse who becomes incapable of making decisions. You know, they some kind of a just brain issue or something like
Yes.
that they can't make decisions. What's your thoughts about that?
So as I said when I spoke about trust, that is true. If a spouse creates a revocable living trust, there's usually an element within the trust that it becomes irrevocable once they become incapacitated, and the trustee is instructed to follow the instructions within the trust, and it's usually to provide for the care of that person first, and then upon that person's death, then it goes to, you know, whoever the additional beneficiaries are. What I find, sadly, and you know, I am an attorney myself, so I say this lovingly, charitably here, that sometimes attorneys recommend a trust for that reason or other reasons, but really the under an attorney, a traditional attorney approach, creating a trust is thousands of dollars. It costs a significant amount of money. So having a recommendation of a trust is a financial benefit to the attorney. I'm not saying it doesn't benefit the client too, but it's an expensive option. What I find is for, again, average middle class people that don't have complicated situations, having a will and a power of attorney is enough. Now, the power of attorney, again, protects the person who becomes incapacitated because they have an opportunity for choosing someone they love and trust to make financial decisions for them. So it serves a similar purpose of the trust, but the cost is less, which of course with Gentreo, it doesn't matter because the price point difference between, it's all, you get all of those documents for the $85. The difference is a trust needs to be funded and there's a cost involved with that. So if you own a house and you want the house to be part of the trust, you have to deed that house into the trust. And there's a cost, there's recording fees, etc. With the power of attorney, your agent can just manage whatever assets you own during your incapacity. And if it's a permanent incapacity, they can be permanently in charge. If it's an incapacity, like you referenced, a traumatic brain injury from a car accident or something, and hopefully within months a recovery is possible, they only step in to that incapacity during that short time. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Yes?
Mary Kay, I've
Sure.
got a couple of questions. First of all, thank you. Great presentation, good overview of both the estate planning and your services. First question is on, kind of follows on to what you were just talking about, the pour over will. So, and I understand about the need to transfer assets and sort of the ultimate safeguard of the pour over will. But talk a minute about whether a pour over will ultimately will still keep the estate out of probate or not, or is that dependent on the amount of assets that haven't gone into the trust prior to death? I'm just curious about that.
So Again, this again gets to how attorneys advertise, oh, if you do a trust, you're all set, you don't have to go to probate. Unfortunately, it is very rare that individuals transfer everything they own individually into the trust, right? Because you usually keep something that you're in control of, that you're not dealing with through the trust. Now, for those that are successful, which I'm being honest, I've never seen it. I've never seen 100% everything in. But say, that unicorn, that's real, then there's never any probate, because there's nothing held individually outside of the trust. So the trustee manages everything. The reality is, like I said, there's usually like at least one like pass-through bank account. There might be personal tangible property within the home, like china, flatware, things like this. There may be art or a coin collection. And the challenge with those type of objects is, how do you say, I own, like, for example, a coin collection. I have a coin collection. Unlike a car or a house where there's a title transfer, how does one transfer the title of the coins? So some people could say, oh, well, that coin collection wasn't part of the trust because there's nothing showing that it ever went in. So that's the benefit of the pour over will. It captures everything, and it's your intent that everything you own individually is going to pass from you into the trust per the pour over will. And unfortunately, that does mean that will has to be probated.
Does that mean automatically, or is it a function of the dollar value of what goes through the pour over will? In other words, if you had, only $5,000 of some stray asset, would you fall below a state threshold perhaps versus get $100,000 to trigger a probate? Is that a factor?
So, well, to that point, if you fell below, like in a small estate, I believe is what you're referring to.
Right,
and
right.
There are the different states in the United States have options of administering assets that fall below a certain threshold amount, and every state has a different value of a small estate. With that, you wouldn't have to probate the pour over will. You could just administer that small amount outside of the trust. But what happens is that money, if you don't probate the pour over will, that money gets distributed per the laws of intestacy in your state.
Oh, okay.
So,
Right.
I mean, if you're satisfied that it's like, well, it's only 5,000, I don't care if these family members get it, even though they're not getting the bulk of it in the trust, but that would be an option.
Got it. Okay. Oh, and I have a second question unrelated to that, but on your fee structure, as I understand it, the $85 a year, which is a great, excellent price, a good deal. And that gets you the continued access to the vault and the updates and things like that. But if someone wanted to discontinue that, as I understand it, they still own the documents and they would simply not have the updates and they would not have the electronic vault, but almost like when you pay a lawyer, what you get is just the documents, right? You don't automatically get updates. You don't have any electronic vault. You put them in your own file drawer. So in that event, if someone just wanted to use it for the creation of the documents and not the update, it would be $85 period, right?
That is correct. And thank you so much for clarifying that. Obviously, I was not clear. Your analysis is 100% correct. Obviously, our goal, and again, as founder, this was a key feature that I felt was essential because I'm heartsick at court with people that, this one gentleman in particular, I can still see his face. He was with me when his wife was dying, and he knew that she had created documents and he couldn't find it. So obviously for Gentreo, we believe the Gentreo Vault and the team sharing feature are important. That being said, obviously as a customer, you get the membership for the year, you create as many documents as you want. If at the end of that time, you're like, I'm all set, I don't want the digital vault team sharing feature, you end your subscription, but you own everything you created. The only challenge is, and it's not really a challenge, the only point, and we send email reminders reminding you of this, you have to take it out of the digital vault. You have to download it and scan it and put it somewhere else or save it somewhere else, because at a certain point past the year, your subscription, your access to the digital vault is cut off. But again, that's not without multiple warnings, saying you've got to make sure you take this stuff, because we want customers obviously to use their documents.
Well, then the flip side, as I understand it, is that those of us who have already created estate plans, prior to even knowing about Gentreo, and have existing documents, we can upload those, and we can pay for the $85 a year, even if we don't have to create documents. We can upload what we have and have the electronic vault function. And I guess, and you tell me this, let's say, I've got a complete set of estate documents created in Virginia, but, I haven't any arrangement with a lawyer that tells me automatically when things change. So your update feature could be available, even though the documents that are in there are other documents. Is that correct for the $85 a year?
Yes. So thank you very much. You're helping me parse out all the features. So what happens when you join Gentreo and create an account, your code and how we know where you are is your zip code. So you have a Virginia zip code, which lets us know we're going to talk to you about Virginia. If there's something special that's happened in Virginia, we'll let you know. For example, New York is just changing its short form power of attorney form. So our New York state members are going to get a notification of that in June, letting them know there's a new power of attorney form. Now, remember, any documents you created under an old statute would still be upheld as long as you complied with the law as it existed at the time. But to your point, if someone is joining and not creating their estate planning documents, but they want the updates, Gentreo is going to know to update them if something specific happened in Virginia because of your Virginia zip code. The further feature, and I did touch upon this briefly, but again, just to expand so everyone's aware of the additional benefits of that vault, not only are you invited to store and share your estate planning documents, but the other relevant important documents. So if you have bank account information, real estate information, car information or documents related to your healthcare. Some of us, see a primary care physician and that's it. Others have a primary care physician, a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, etc. All that information can be there along with medication lists, history of important physical health history. For anyone who's ever accompanied someone to an emergency room, you realize immediately the benefit of that. Instead of filling out these forms, of trying to recall everything in a crisis, you can click and here it all is for you, showing you all the information so you don't have the panic of remembering medication allergies or whatever. It's all outlined for you. So that's the other benefit of the Gentreo Digital Vault, that you store your estate planning information. In your case, you already have those documents. That's great. But query, do the people that you've appointed to be your financial power of attorney or make healthcare decisions know all the other things that they would need to know in order to effectively help you in a crisis? Similarly, for a will, and some people have the attitude, well, I'm gone, what difference does it make? But really, by being organized and outlining your wealth assets in addition to your digital assets, which of course a lot of us have now with Facebook and other types of accounts, by having all that information there, you are saving your loved one who's serving as your personal representative or executor so much work. So they're able to speedily and accurately do their job of winding up your estate.
Well, I think it's great. And the interesting thing, I think, is that it means that your services are really potentially valuable to people either who don't have an estate plan or who do have an estate plan, which happens to be everybody, sort of everybody, right? I mean, if everybody falls into one of those categories. So
Right.
it's it's a broad potential customer base.
Yes.
One thing, and this is Chris, one thing I did want to add on that is, as Mary Kate was talking about, you can upload all your, healthcare information. And she touched on this, but just to make sure that it's clear, people see only what you choose to share with them. And the reason I want to say that is like my next door neighbor, who's my pet sitter, who if I'm going on vacation, I give them access to the pet power of attorney and the pet information, but I don't want them to see all my medical history or my, financial power of attorney. When they come into the vault, all they see is the pet information because that's what I've shared with them. So I know some people get concerned, well, if I put everything out there, I don't want everyone to see it. You have complete control over who sees what information that's in your vault.
Yeah, I think the analogy is like an electronic lock where you can give out codes to particular service people or vendors or something, but not everybody, sort of that sort of thing. So that's interesting. Well, that's a good feature and I think valuable to a lot of people.
Thank you. And thanks for clarifying too, Chris. Are there any other questions?
I have two down in the weeds questions, Mary Kate.
Sure.
The first one has to do with notarizing these documents. So if a customer completes all of the documents online, I presume there's a way to have them notarized, either digitally, or do they take them to a local notary and have a wet signature?
Okay, so here's what's very interesting. I'm sure during COVID, some of you have seen the headlines because remote online notarization has really got a lot of publicity. Unfortunately, that legislation was promoted and designed by businesses and real estate attorneys. Unfortunately, the trust and estate bar didn't really weigh in and assist in that. So your point is correct. You can get your documents notarized online, and actually we're in the process of launching that with a national provider of remote online services. However, the issue is most documents, and off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't know Virginia, but most estate planning documents require not only the signature of the principal, or if the principal has a physical incapacity in which they cannot sign, there's permission for someone to sign on their behalf. It also requires witnesses and a notary. So the deficiency with the remote online notarization possibility is that it doesn't allow for remote witnessing. So in other words, in theory, you could have your document notarized by someone, in Florida, say. You could be sitting in Virginia and there could be a notary in Florida notarizing it for you. But what you'd also need is witnesses. So you'd have to call two people that are not in any way benefiting or involved in the documents you've created. It's usually two. There are a few outlying states that require 3, and there are some that require 1, but I'm going with the general. And afterwards, I can certainly look and email and tell you specifically what it is for Virginia. But for purposes of this, you understand that I'm saying the witnesses, you'd need 2 witnesses with you while you're signing. So those witnesses would not be remote, they'd be with you, but the notary in Florida could notarize all 3 of your statements. And the other issue is that our partner that we're having the remote online notarization relationship with, they are also connecting us with boots on the ground notaries mobile notaries who would come to your home, because we really are, our goal here with this is to make it as easy as possible. So once you're all ready to execute and finalize your documents, we want to be able to make sure that you have quick and easy access to a notary in order to, finish it.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's, and the second, again, down in the weeds question.
Sure.
So as far as the vault is concerned, I mean, a customer could upload any document. And what I'm thinking of is, if a client decides to set up a trust, but they do choose purposely not to put all of their financial assets into the trust, the name of the trust, they could upload documents like life insurance policies that name the beneficiaries, which could be a child or a sibling or a parent. And that way that's accessible to the trustee or the executor of the will.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. And actually, Chris, who's on this call from Gentreo, he has personal experience of that. They found a life insurance, he or one of his brothers found a life insurance policy of his mom in her drawer, I think it was her underwear drawer. And they had no knowledge of this life insurance policy. And here's what the problem is on that, is if they had not taken the time and personally wound down and cleaned out her living, and I can't remember if it was a house or apartment or whatever, if they weren't the ones cleaning out her residence and they just hired someone else to do, I can tell you it would have been swept up and thrown away. And believe me, the insurance company isn't going to come knocking and saying, oh, seems like quite some time, let me pay you. This information needs to be available, and the people that are either benefiting from it or making sure, in the case of a special needs, if it be someone advocating on behalf of that person with special needs, that person would know, I need to file a claim, I need to get access to this funds in order to benefit who you wanted to benefit.
Mhm.
So yes, indeed, having all of that information there is very helpful.
Actually, I have one more, a third question.
Sure.
So let's go back to including charities of choice in the will or the trust as a beneficiary. Does the software or the program have the ability to include specific restrictions on the gift or designations that go to that charity? So for example, if I wanted to leave a gift to the Emmanuel Endowment Foundation in my will, but I wanted it to go to a specific purpose, could I specify that in there so it's kind of codified?
Right. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I'll send you an email.
Wouldn't it just be a question of drafting in the right words? I mean,
that's what I'm trying to recall. I think when you go through the survey, you have an option of benefiting a charity, or we have the pop-up Emmanuel Lutheran. But if you wanted to only benefit, say, Emmanuel Lutheran missionary work,
right.
instead of checking Emmanuel Lutheran Church, you would have to type Emmanuel Lutheran missionary work.
But you have the ability to type in that kind of specific
yes.
information. Yeah.
But what I'm
going to add to that. Oh, sorry. I was going to add to that when you come in, when you come into that link that Mary Kate had shared on the slide, that gentreo.com/ELCA, then there's going to be a list of churches of which Emmanuel Lutheran is one. And when they click on Emmanuel Lutheran, that's what then pre-populates, Emmanuel Lutheran when they get to the plan gift page. it's possible that if there are specific funds, several different specific funds that you would want listed, we could work with you and see if we could get those coded in. So if there's multiple options, the one thing that we always want to advise people though is don't put something in if it's like something that you're going to be doing for the next 2 years, but then it goes away, because if someone passes away after that time, they've designated something that doesn't exist. So if we permanently code it in there, we want to make sure that it's something that's going to be, you plan to have ongoing within your congregation.
Right. The other way, Greg, that I think, we could publicize that people could do this, and I think it would be effective. Let's say that, someone wanted to leave a gift to, or put a bequest in their will or trust to the ELC Endowment Fund, and it's named like that in the trust. But as you say, they wanted to go to a specific ministry, let's say outreach or something like that. Well, that direction, that restriction, if you will, that special instruction could actually be come from the executor, from the trustee. In other words, I think the church, from the standpoint of the charitable donation, that's that doesn't matter. I mean, that's inside baseball. The fact is you just want to get it to the church, get it to the endowment fund. The fact that it's then to be allocated and used for a particular purpose or ministry, that can be done outside the estate documents through an instruction from a trustee or something. Don't you think, Chris or Mary Kate?
So legally, that is true. You could do that, but I would like to just be clear that that would strictly be an honor system, that there's no legal obligation for say you gave a gift of $10,000, there's no legal obligation that $10,000 would then only be used for outreach ministry. So if someone really, really cares about that, it would need to say ELC endowment outreach ministry in order to capture that. But Chris's point was very important. We'd never want a situation for these charities that we work with to lose out on a gift or have it lapse because that campaign is no longer going forward. So broader language is better. And I would have to say personally, in my experience, most people, when they want to give to a charity, it's a charity that they have a great affection and love for and a trust for. So if they're giving the gift, they're trusting that the charity is going to use that money in the best way they see fit. So I would say in my private practice, I always encourage people to not limit, for the reason it's like, we can't predict the future. You might think right now, oh, outreach really needs it, but by the time you die, it's shifted and outreach doesn't need it. This other component really needs it. And if you were able to switch it around, you would have. So, in my mind, a broader is better. But to be clear, and what I would like to get back to you on is I agree with Chris's analysis that if your church in particular has a few subsets of funds, we would be able to offer that.
I think that's a good feature. I think at a minimum, I think, Greg would agree, we would want to make clear that you could leave it to Emmanuel Lutheran Church, or you could leave it specifically to the Emmanuel Lutheran Church Endowment Fund, which is a separate sort of a place. And so at a minimum,
for long-term projects or whatever.
Yeah, at a minimum, we'd want that kind of tweaking and maybe one or two more line items, but we can work that out.
Yeah, and we could definitely do that for you.
That'd
so
be
I
great.
know we have email information from this webinar. So Chris and I will be in touch with our Chief Technology Officer. You get us a list of what you're interested in, and we'll be sure to get that in for you.
That'd be great.
Thank
We'd
you.
be glad to do that.
Okay.
Question, if I may. We have a lot of folks that are very tech savvy, and I've been on your website. It seems very user friendly.
And thank you.
That you bet. We have folks that might struggle with it. Can you tell us more about support, customer care?
Sure. So, again, the goal is to make it as user-friendly as possible, even for the least like tech-savvy person, which, is me. But for those that have problems and, just aren't as comfortable with technology, which we appreciate, we do offer the support at Gentreo line, and it's answered by a person to help and assist in walking through the technology. There's no legal advice that's given, but again, we've designed the program so that as you're going through, you have all kinds of additional information and education about, the reason why we're asking you this, and these are the implications of that, so someone can make a fully informed decision. Another suggestion I'd have for those who are challenged by technology, and it's also a way of sort of, and I think you probably agree, Pastor, is initiating the conversation, is if someone who's on the older end of the spectrum and not as tech savvy, but knows they need to do this, this could be an opportunity of starting the conversation with a loved one saying, I want to get organized. I want to do this. Can you come over and help me? And then they can walk through it together. So for example, one of our co-founders entered information on behalf of a great aunt. The great aunt was capable, she understood everything, but the technology piece was the challenge. But all of that, is able to be done to make it easy for someone else to assess. And then at the end of the day, once the documents are created, because of course we want to make sure there's no fraud or financial exploitation or any of those problems for a vulnerable elder, these documents have to be witnessed and notarized. So it's, the person who's signing it ultimately has to say, yes, I wanted this will, it's my free act and deed. This is what I want. So those would be the ways I'd say to help someone who, unfortunately, the technology is a little bit challenging to move ahead.
Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this colloquy at the end. I think your questions that you've asked have highlighted to me how I need to be a little bit more clear in part of my presentation. But I really appreciate all the questions and this conversation. That's been great. And I hope that your church members find this to be a benefit, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much.